That was Senator John McCain reacting to Mitt Romney's surprise announcement that he's sitting out for the 2016 race for president. 2 days after that bombshell, other possible contenders are publicly complimenting the former GOP nominee while privately scrambling to court his supporters and grab a piece of his fundraising network. Who benefits most now from Romney's departure? Christy Setzer, president of New Heights Communication, former Iowa press secretary for Vice President Al Gore; Amos Snead, former press secretary for then Republican whip Roy Blunt. Amos, first for you, this was such a surprise that Romney drops out. 3 weeks ago, he says, "I'm seriously considering it." Was this a case that he finally decided, look, I've done this twice, I'm tired, I don't want to put my family through it? Or was he reading the tea leaves that my money was disappearing, my fundraisers weren't going to be there, they were going to other candidates, and also my aides were leaving? He had just recently stolen, Jeb Bush had stolen one of his aides, top aides in Iowa.
I think Mitt Romney looked at his closest allies, the people sitting around him, and they realized, we can beat Hillary Clinton this time. Republicans can win. It may not be us. We've got a deep bench out there, and I think they did the right thing. And since this has happened, Washington Post yesterday said Jeb Bush is now the front runner, so I guess all cameras now point to him.
Well, all cameras, all opposition research, everything else. Being the front runners, we've learned, is not necessarily the right thing. And that might be what was behind this tweet from Obama's 2010, Mr. Obama's 2008 campaign manager, put up this tweet here from 2012. Damn, Friday ruined now that Romney is not running. I knew God didn't love me enough for that gift. That's from President Obama's 2012 campaign manager. To you, Christy, was Mitt Romney the best Republican from a Democratic standpoint because you guys had already on him enough?
He certainly would have been a lot of fun to run against, and you certainly saw in the last 3 weeks, because this is Super Bowl Sunday, I'll say that that was one seriously deflated test balloon that Mitt Romney put out there. It would have been very, very fun for Democrats to be able to talk about his plans for poverty. But yes, I think that he ultimately decided that this was going to be too hard of a mountain for him to climb.
Definitely a tough mountain to climb, but what's interesting is that the polls, at least that we saw in the beginning, showed that he was the front runner among possible Republican voters. That obviously has changed. Check out the front page of today's Des Moines Register that shows Scott Walker has an edge in the tight GOP field. Get this, Amos. 3 months ago, 41% of caucus goers in Iowa didn't know who Scott Walker was. They couldn't form his opinion. Suddenly, he's at the top. Does that matter at this point?
You know, I saw this morning, he's surging. He's had a couple of good polls, but it is early, you know, and there's a lot of stories to be told. Really, if you look at it, it's about the bench that Republicans have. There are so many strong candidates on the Republican side. And if you look, I think it's really, you know, where's Hillary Clinton? You haven't seen her do any public appearances this year. Well, she's done 2. They were in Canada.
She doesn't have to at this point. I mean, is more the point.
I think she's waiting around as if this is almost a coronation for her, which is what got her in trouble in 2008. But it really goes back to all the strong Republican candidates. I mean, look what Rubio's doing out there right now on his book tour. Look at Christy's doing to stay in the news, you know, catching a soccer game in London with a gaggle of national reporters with him.
When you look at this, though, Christy, you've spent a lot of time in Iowa, and that's where folks are on the ground here. Anyone who says the Iowa caucuses doesn't matter hasn't been in politics very long. In that sense, are you going to all of a sudden see now this continuing to shift? You work for Vice President Gore, you work for Howard Dean there. How fluid is Iowa, or is the fact that Scott Walker's a front runner significant?
No, I mean, we are still very, very early. But what I think is significant is the fact that if you look at that Des Moines Register poll, what you see are the people who are at the top of the poll there, Scott Walker, also Rand Paul, are people who are seen as either really fresh faces in the Republican field or just anti-establishment in general. And so that's actually where Mitt Romney would have faced the most trouble, I think, is that these are people who have defined themselves by breaking with Republican orthodoxy on certain issues. Obviously, Rand Paul talking about, you know, drone strikes. He gets a lot of Democratic support, independent support on those sorts of issues. He had interesting things to say after Ferguson. And so I think that makes people like Christy and especially Jeb Bush take pause, that what Republican voters at this stage seem to be saying is they don't want those old faces, they want something new.
Amos, you agree with that?
No, absolutely not. I think, you know, the Republican Party right now is talking about the future. We're talking about the new faces that are here. We know they're going to be...
Well, new faces inherently aren't somebody like Jeb Bush.
Sure, but we realize they're going to be running against an old name, the Clintons again. So I think Republicans are looking, as we see in Iowa, for new ideas. And there's a deep bench, lots of potential strong candidates who could beat Hillary Clinton.
Well, lots of things to talk about, and I have to give you props for getting in Deflategate. That's the first mention in the show. You get it there. Christy Setzer, thanks for joining us. Amos Snead as well. Good to be with you. Yes.